Hi guys, Chilibin here. This video has been a long time coming, but I finally want to share with you my latest Make Your Own Gear video. I've worked on the second iteration of my packs based on the pack prototype. If you haven't seen my pack prototype video, then you should check that out first. I'll put the link up in the corner up here, I think. This one kind of builds on that, and I'm going to show what I decided to change from the prototype and how I got to my final pack design. So this guy here is the pack prototype. You've seen it before. But I want to start off by sharing some of the things I changed from the prototype straight away after I finished that video. The main thing is the strap system on it. You may remember that the original pack design was based on the Mountain Flyer design with a few of my own twists. This harness design is based on the running vest from the Learn MYOG website, once again with a few twists. So I started out by making a harness. The top has got foam in it. It has 2 chest pockets and then 2 lowered zippered pockets. And the first iteration of this actually had mesh all the way across to the side seam. That was way too big to fit on Raiden. So I tried a lacing system and that didn't really work. So we ended up going with a double adjustable strap system. And it's attached to the pack in a pretty ugly way. You can see that here. These side seams got sewn together and taken apart so many times that the Tyvek was getting a little bit rough, and you can see all through here there's pinholes from putting on and off the previous design of the harness. So this one just got sewn straight on the outside, nice and tight. And we did this, the straps that I had on the previous one, they were way too thick, they weren't very bendy, and Raiden really wanted a harness style system. And seeing as he didn't have a pack here with him, we decided when we went on La Cloche Silhouette that he was going to be using this pack and giving it a test out. So it was really important that it was comfortable for him. So yeah, it got a new harness system. It's got a spacer mesh on the inside and the zippered pocket, stretchy foam pocket, and then the overstrap system. I think everything else on this pack is pretty much the same as last time you saw it. On the sides you can see that these don't go anywhere anymore, and that's because I actually cannibalized the strap to put on the new packs because I ran out of webbing, but we'll get to that later. So as I mentioned, Raiden used this as his pack when we went on La Cloche Silhouette Trail. It was an opportunity to really give it a good test out, check out the volume, the way it sat on his body, and figure out what we did and didn't like about it. So I'm going to start off with some of the things we didn't like about it. One of the big ones on the harness system was this edging. So I used grosgrain all the way around the edges because that was what I had available, but it doesn't really have any stretch or give, and so especially around the neckline it ended up pressing in quite hard, especially on his collarbones. And it wasn't very comfortable. So we decided that was definitely something that needed to change for the next version of the pack. Another thing about the harness system that didn't quite work well was this padding. So this seam on the diagonal is something that was built into the original design in that location, and so I just naturally ended the foam at that spot. However, it turned out that that was quite a bad spot for the foam to end. It didn't come far enough over his shoulders and caused a pressure point. So we decided that in the next version, we just had to extend that foam down a little bit further. Another issue that we had was with the sternum straps. These buckles combined with this webbing slipped over time. It wasn't too bad, but it was enough to be a little bit annoying. And these buckles, I got a 100-pack of multicolored buckles from Amazon for super cheap. And so I knew that I was going to use a different buckle for the real version anyway. So I decided that when I did the sternum straps, I would buy a buckle and the webbing that was recommended to go with that buckle to try and get around that issue. Another thing, this might seem small, on these sides, I had the adjusters on the pack, pulling the straps towards the body, and this led these to be a little bit annoying and rubbed on Raiden's arms. So we're going to switch them around the other way. I'm not sure if it'll really help, but I think it'll at least aim them away from the body a bit more rather than straight up towards his arms. And the last thing that we didn't like about this prototype, and once again it was sort of something I knew was going to happen anyway, was the fabric I used for the mesh. This fabric was just some leftovers I had lying around from when I made Raiden a pair of tights. So it definitely wasn't meant to be the pack fabric. And I was planning on using a power mesh anyway, but it did really mean that when I was buying the fabric for the packs that I kept in mind what would and wouldn't absorb water. And it was something I kind of tried to make sure that I'd get something that didn't absorb water, because when it rained on us on the close silhouette, everything got soggy. Particularly the bottom pocket got really wet, wicked water up this way onto Raiden's back. So we didn't want that to happen. There's also a few things that we wanted to add to the pack that we hadn't included in the prototype that we wanted in the real version. One was a little hanging hook here so the bag can be hung up. The other is a V-strap over the top to secure this down. It also means that if we ever want to carry a foam mat or anything like that, we can do so. We also wanted to add a loop down here and a fastener up here for an ice axe. So here are our final packs. This one here is Raiden's and this one is mine. There's a few differences between them, but there's a lot of similarities. I guess the first thing is the fabric. We wanted to use some of the outdoor ink printed fabric from Ripstop by the roll, but they've been doing some modifications to their upload tool, and a lot of the fabrics were out of stock, and time kept passing, and we wanted to just get on and make these. So we ended up going with 2.2 ounce per square yard hex 70, and it's a waterproof, breathable fabric. It's very soft, and it doesn't come in very many colors. So we got blue for Raiden and red for me. The mesh pocket on the front of the pack and on the sides is made out of power mesh, and I just got this from a local fabric store. They suggest it for lining of swimsuits and things like that. The bottom pocket here is made of a reflective fabric. It's got stretch to it. I think it's, I can't remember what it's called, from Ripstop by the roll. We also used it for the bottom of the mesh pockets so that there's just that little bit more protection from ripping of the pockets. On the harness of Raiden's pack, I used the sturdier mesh on the zippered pockets and the lighter weight mesh on the top pocket. So as you can see, I brought the foam down much further on this. I also used elastic for going around the edges, so this bottom all has quite a bit of stretch to it now. Over the top, we have the hanging hook, we have the V-strap, and on the front, we have the ice axe loop here. Another change we made from the packs is that this front pocket is no longer removable. You can just get in from the sides. On the previous version, it had a buckle at the top. The V-strap over the top can unclip, of course, and then his pack has side buckles to open it up. At the moment, we've got a bit of excess webbing hanging off this V-strap, which needs to be chopped off. There are some pretty major differences between Raiden's pack and mine. Raiden's pack is a lot more similar to the prototype because we were going for a few more experimental things, especially with the harness. We really wanted to make sure it fitted. Mine is much more of a standard pack. So if we look at the harness system, Raiden's harness is very similar to the prototype. It's slightly narrower than the prototype to fit into the bag better. Mine is a much more standard over-the-shoulder strap system. These are based on the straps on my Gossamer Gear Kumo, and also similar to the Mountain Flyer. I kind of drafted off both of them. They're maybe a little bit wider than I originally wanted, but they're fine. My straps have foam the whole way down, and there's actually a joint in the foam. And that caused me a slight issue. You might be able to see that there's some pins still holding this together. And that's because my sewing machine, the foot doesn't lift up high enough to get through the foam and the mesh. On Raiden's bag, it's just going through the spacer mesh, so it's fine. Mine, it's a lot thicker. Soon I'm going to have access to a sewing machine that has a foot that lifts a little bit higher, so I should be able to get through all the layers and finish that off. Another major thing about my pack that Raiden's doesn't have is the hip belt. This hip belt is very similar to the Gossamer Gear Kumo's one. I actually have used the same style of attachment on the sides here, and it has mesh pockets here. It's fully removable. I have wide hips, and for me it's really easy to just do up a hip belt and take all of that weight straight onto my hips. I find it a super comfortable way, even if I'm not carrying much load. I really like the hip belt. You never know. I made the hip belt removable because maybe one day I'll want to go hip beltless, but for now I wanted to keep that there, so I put the hip belt on. The last major difference you can see in our packs is the way that the top is done up. So Raiden's is a roll down top with straps down the sides. Mine is a much more basic method. It has a drawstring, and I just do up the drawstring and fold it out of the way. It's a similar closure method to what I had on my KS pack a long time ago, and I quite liked it. It's very easy to get in and out of, and a little bit less finicky. It also requires less straps and hardware, and because I added the hip belt, I didn't want to add too much other weight to my pack. The little bit interesting about this pack is that the straps are sewn on the outside of the pack. So in order to reduce pulling on a seam across here, I instead added an outside panel and sandwiched the top of the straps between a layer of fabric and the body of the pack. This will change the way that the weight's distributed and hopefully not pull the pack apart at the top here. So I saw that online, thought I'd give it a go. Mine's done like that. Raiden's is not because I struggled, I guess. His is sewn on the inside of the pack instead. And I guess the last thing I'd like to talk about is the inside of the packs. So just take out all my stuffing. So the inside of a lot of packs have the seams bound with grosgrain, and I decided not to do that because it would add extra weight. And so instead, I just went over them with my serger or overlocker to just tidy up the seams and enclose everything in them. So it came out with a really neat seam here, which I'm really happy with. And you can see that the straps don't come into the inside at all. They just are sewn on the outside through this panel. So, yeah, really neat and tidy on the inside. I'm really happy with how the weight of these packs turned out. Raiden's pack is about 275 grams, and I think mine's about 285 grams because of the slight difference in hardware and the hip belt. Really happy with that. I'm really interested to see how they hold up to some use and how comfortable they are on a long-term basis. I hope you guys enjoyed the rundown on what happened between the prototype and the next version of these packs. I've got some really big adventures coming up soon where I'm going to test out these packs, but also all of the other Make Your Own Gear projects that I've been working on. I'm really looking forward to sharing them with you, so if you'd like to come along, please subscribe to my channel so that you can be right there with me.